another edition of that Millwall podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. End of the season was a depressing one, but hey ho, it's over now. We can move forward, and that is the only bit we're going to talk about Blackburn. This is a Blackburn-free show, so we're going to start on some good news, and then we're going to analyse the players. We're going to rate the transfers. We're going to look at what positions are needed coming into this new transfer window, what opened in about 16 days, and some more stuff what I've easily forgotten. So, without further ado, and we will be back straight after this, where you get to meet the panel. Welcome back. Okay, we are joined this evening with the one and only Stephen. Good evening, sir.
Evening, Mickey. Evening, chaps. It's hopefully going to be quite a good summer for the Lions, and hopefully we can kick it off with some good content for the listeners.
Absolutely. We're joined by Benjamin.
Evening, fellas. I'm still getting the Benjamin.
Yeah, because it just rolls
Must be
off
in
the
trouble
tongue.
again, mate.
It rolls off the tongue really well. You know, when you go, and here we have Ben, it just doesn't, you know.
Oh, man, we'll go with Benjamin.
Maybe we'll put it out. We'll put it out to a vote.
Put it out to a vote, yeah.
Yeah, you know, if you think I should carry on calling Benjamin, then just hashtag Benjamin or hashtag Ben. At least that way we'll see if anyone actually listens to us as well, I suppose. And we're joined by newbie Dan.
Yeah, good evening, chaps. Looking forward to this one tonight. I think there's going to be a few different opinions flying about, which will be certainly interesting to see how we all assess this season.
Yeah, that I think is no truer word said. I am going to pretty much chair this and let you boys hopefully get into it. I need to find what we are. There we go. I've got that. Right. Before we move on, the development team today came back. The under-21s come back from a 2-0 deficit to win 4-3. Fuck me, we can't get away from that number no matter how we try. Anyway, come back 4-3 and won the game. So they've won the semi. They're now into the final with Sheffield United. Stephen, unfortunately, I think it was a bit of a nightmare that they just didn't show it on the YouTube channel. I don't know why they didn't, but they could have showed it on YouTube or showed it on Millwall TV. For those people who couldn't get down there, who were working, it would have been good to be able to see it. But yeah, two players scored who we've been moaning about all season to be on the pitch, especially one of them, and he scored. But hey ho, what's your views on the game today?
I was going to say you've completely ruined my opening because I was going to talk about a 4-3 result that we might actually want to talk about rather than a 4-3 result that we don't want to talk about. But no, the development squad, obviously, the future Lions, obviously the future's looking bright. There's some good young players. I think we had 3 of the goal scorers, Nana Boateng, and Maku, and obviously Romain Esse have all been involved in the first team within the last 18 months. Obviously, Nana Boateng hasn't been around so much this year. I think he had an injury last year, but played against Crystal Palace in the Cup. And Maku brought in January, signed in December, but officially joined the club in January. Someone that we've been looking to hopefully blood for next year. And obviously the big one, I think Romain Esse got the equaliser about 94th, 95th minute to take the tie through to extra time. And obviously the Lions, they managed to get over the line. But I think it's really important that I was having this conversation in the week where we've seen under Harris to a certain extent and Rowett that there's not many, but there's a few more players. So you had Aidan O'Brien and Ben Thompson initially come from the academy and make it to the first team, admittedly in League One. And then you've had Billy Mitchell, Danny McNamara make their way into the Championship side. So the academy is obviously getting better. When the new training ground comes along, I think that will improve their facilities and everything for them as well. But it's a fantastic achievement. They obviously won the Southern League. They're now through to the playoff final, which I'm led to believe is this weekend. I don't think it's been confirmed what day or where just yet, but we face Sheffield United, and some of the players in that team are bound to be first team footballers next year. And I think it's only good for the club moving forward.
No, I totally agree with you. I've got a question with what you said there as well. So we'll come back to that about players coming through and stuff. But we'll come through on that on the transfer bit in a bit. So I think without further ado, we'll start. And I'm going to throw the topics around a bit. I'm not going to stick to them as in the order we are as such. I'm going to start with rate our transfers, what we obviously secured in January. And I am going to go with you, Ben.
Okay, mate. So
let's go with Vloggy.
Okay, Vloggy.
Or as Joe calls him, Vagina.
The badge slammer.
Yeah.
So I had 5 written down for Voggy, and I thought, you know what, that's probably a little bit harsh. He did end the season with our top assist man.
So 4 then?
So I went to 6.
Okay.
I think we all know that we could probably get a lot more out of Voggy. Having sat next to him at the end of season awards and I chat to him, he said his natural position is down the middle, so he's technically been playing out a position all season. So I gave him a 6.
Okay, Stephen, what do you give Voggy?
Just for the benefit of the listeners, Ben chewed Voggy's ear off all night at the end of season awards. It wasn't just a chat. But no, nice fella, as he said. As Ben said, he did say his natural position was through the middle. I'll be honest with you. I think I can't go higher than a 5. I think defensively and what he does in terms of his work ethic is really, really good for the team. I think you can tell that he's passionate in the sense of he wants the team to do well. But if his natural position's through the middle, you'd expect him to perhaps have a little bit more quality in front of goal, and I don't think we've seen enough of it. I know he's been out wide, but still he's had opportunities in games to perhaps have a shot on goal, perhaps even hit the target, and it's just not happened enough. He's there for another season. Will he improve on my 5, Ben 6? I'm not sure, but I guess as a squad player, handy to maybe have for some fresh legs or in cup games and things next year.
So you score him
5. For the benefit of the listeners, Mickey has.
Dan, what do you score? Sorry, my laptop just switched off.
I'm going to give him a 4 just because I felt there was so much hype around him. And if you kind of looked at, I don't think any of us have really watched him play. If you kind of looked at his underlying numbers, like in terms of starts and minutes to like goals and assist ratio, it was really good. So I think there was a lot of promise around him, and he's probably been a bit unlucky, as he said. His natural position's down the middle, and he hasn't played there. But he's played most of the season out wide, and I think I can only recall him having really 2 or 3 good games. So for me, just because of the nature of the signing and how underwhelming he's been, I'm going to give him a 4.
Okay, let's go on to Fleming then, and I'll start with you then, Dan.
I've given him a 10. I think he's technically the best player in the squad, and I think he's just so important to how we attack and what we do. So I have to give him a 10 personally.
Okay, welcome to the last show Dan's on. Go on, Ben. Give us some realistic.
So I've got 7.5, and do you know what? I just had a look at his stats a little bit more, and if he hadn't have started the season so well, I know if Marty had bollocks and all that, but since January, he's got 3 assists and 5 goals in 21 games. And I keep barking on about it in all of our live shows and all of our space that we're doing. for me, he just didn't do enough in those final 10 games to drag us through and get us into that playoff spot. So I've given him a 7.5. Look, he's had a great first season in the Championship. It's such a hard league. We know that. To adapt to English football, he's done really well. I want more from him next year. And I think we all maybe got very carried away early on in the season about how good he was. But yeah, 7.5.
Okay, Stephen?
I'm going to edge more towards Ben rather than Dan. I think had you have asked this question in February, I think we easily 10. There's no question about it. But when push comes to shove, I think I'm not going to say he's let us down, because following off of Ben's stat there, if you look at the goals and assists that he's got, he won us a game at Stoke. He got the winner at Blackpool. I think he was involved in both goals against Norwich. So involved in both goals against Preston. So his goals and his contributions have earned us points. So I think it's harsh perhaps to say sometimes the second half of the season he's not done enough, because in the games we've won he has stepped up. But I do agree that perhaps we did need to see a little bit more of him second half of the season. I'm going to go with an 8, because if you look at the stats, if you base it purely on stats, his numbers are phenomenal for a first season in English football. There is more to come, but I think an 8 is probably a fair evaluation, in my opinion, for him.
Okay, cool. Creswell, go you, Stephen.
Again, this one, I was thinking about this before we come on, and I might surprise a couple of people with this, but I'm going to rank him around the same as Fleming. I'm going to go with an 8, because I think if you look at when he first come into the team, it was all right. Obviously, scored a couple of goals against Stoke and looked okay. Then he went through an absolutely shambolic period. He just didn't look. He looked like a player that was low on confidence. He was obviously dropped. The game against Sheffield United in the FA Cup, obviously, all the ground wasn't open, so everyone was sat in what I call the main stand. So. And he tried to make a tackle on one of the Sheffield United players, and he had 2 attempts at it, and it was like Sunday League football. It was awful, and all the fans around us were sort of going, "No, he's got to go back to Leeds. He's got to go back." Hutchinson got injured, and in second half of the season, when he played, he was phenomenal. But overall, I'd like to keep him, and I think there's more to come. But an overall season, I think it's been about an 8.
Okay, Ben?
Yeah, I've tried to rank everyone individually and not kind of against the other transfers, if that makes sense. I've given Creswell an 8. I actually just think pretty much what Stephen said. He had a great start and then went through a really bad run. And I actually said on one of the shows that I thought he was done. And that was kind of around October time. Gary Rowett, I think, done a great job of taking him out the firing line. And you know what? I'm going to stick my neck out here and say, if he'd have stayed in the squad, I not only think we'd have made the playoffs, I actually think he might have finished in the top 3 of player of the season. For a young lad to show the character that he did, to come back into the side, let's be honest, in a really tough environment at Millwall and being a Leeds boy, I think he'd done really well. And I really wish the best for him moving forward, whether that be with us, doubt it, but wherever he ends up, I think he'll be a top centre-half.
No, I totally agree with you there. Totally agree. Dan?
I'm also going to give him an 8. I think, he was really poor at the start, but it was his first season of playing men's football. If you compare him, let's say, to Ballard last season, Ballard came in and kind of hit the floor running straight away because he'd already had a bit of experience in men's football. So, I think the boys have touched on it there. Wasn't a great start at all, but the way he picked it up second half of the season, you can see him going a long way. He looks really the full, almost not quite the full package, but you can see there's definitely potential for him to be the full package there with the way he has the ball, his passing range, and his physicality as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I don't know if it's really fair to rate him because he was injured for a while, but Callum Starr. Dan.
I've given him a 7, and I can't go higher than a 7 because of the injuries. But when he's played, I've really enjoyed watching him. I think he's been a brilliant player. And, it was addressed in a space we did not that long ago about, it's good to have players play in their first position. And Styles actually played in about 5 or 6, and he's never really had a bad game for us. And he's brilliant technically.
Yeah.
I'd love to keep him permanently if there's the chance to. I think we should jump at it to get him through the door permanently. But because of the injuries, I can't put him any higher than a 7.
No, I'll get that. Go on in, Ben.
Yeah, I went 6.5, exactly the same reasons as Dan, mate. Just haven't seen enough of him because of his injury. I think he'd have been a really, really useful player for us over the full course of the season. And I know we've already come on it about where we need to strengthen, but yeah, if we do have the option to buy, the fee's not ridiculous. I would like to get him back next year. So 6.5.
Excellent. Stephen?
Yeah, pretty much banging with the guys. I'd probably say no higher than a 7. Again, based on the fact that he hasn't played. But what's really interesting is all of us, and I'm pretty sure if you ask most of the fan base, that even though we haven't seen enough of him and people, we're giving him a rating of a 6.5, 7 out of 10, everybody or most people want to sign him permanently. And I think that shows you just what we've seen in the games that he has played, that he can be a really good addition to the team. So whilst you might think, oh, well, why would you want to sign just a 6.5 or 7 out of 10? Because I think the potential is there for him to be better in the Championship long term. And I think he touched on it as well. He's never really had any injuries. So it's the first one, which, just sort of law that he's come with us. So if you can keep him fit, it could be one hell of a buy if we can get it over the line. But I'd go a 7.
Okay. Duncan, what more? Stephen?
This was an interesting one because I'm gonna go over 6, and I don't think Duncan Watmore's potentially had the best of deals coming to Millwall. He started in a couple of games when he first joined us. I think at QPR he obviously scored the first goal and come with a lot of promise, but for some reason he's just not been the player that we expected to get. He was in and out of the side. We wondered if there was an injury or if it was a problem behind the scenes. We've spoke about it quite a lot, but I think in the last two games, and again, I know it's only two games out of 46 across the season, but he showed real promise. I think the pass for Bradshaw's goal was outstanding at Blackpool. His work rate and his effort against Blackburn in the first half was outstanding, involved in all 3 goals. And I think there's a player in there. For some reason, during the February-March period, something happened and he just wasn't quite on it. But again, I'm pleased we've got him. Maybe not going to be a starter next year, maybe an impact player, but certainly one I'm quite pleased that we're going to have in our squad.
No, I sort of agree with you on that one. Ben?
Yeah, I went with a 6 as well, to be fair, Mickey. And I tried to not be influenced by the last 2 games. You have to look at his whole period at the club. And again, pretty much what Stephen said, he obviously started really well against QPR. And I thought, yeah, we've got a bit of a coup getting Watmore in. And then he just seemed to go missing for 2 or 3 months, didn't he? Until he come back into the squad later on in the year. So, yeah, I've given him a 6. Again, agreeing with Stephen, I think he'll be a useful player for us next year. I don't know, will he be a starter? Will he be a squad player? But yeah, I'm giving him a 6, and I would obviously keep him around for next year. I think he's a good Championship player.
Dan?
With the boys, a 6. Middlesbrough fans were quite disappointed to lose him. And when you look at their attacking options on paper, certainly says something. They were quite disappointed to lose a player of his calibre. It hasn't been the easiest ride. If you'd have probably asked me this question a month ago, I probably would have been maybe around the 4 kind of region. But, he showed real promise in the last few games. It's kind of nailing down what kind of role he's going to have in the squad next season. I certainly see him as kind of more of a player that could definitely come off the bench and make an impact. But, he's not going to want it to come here to kind of play that impact role, because that's what he was doing at Borough. He's going to want to come here and play games and prove himself.
No, I'll get that. We'll start with you then, Dan. Shackleton.
I've also gone with a 6. We just haven't seen him. It's a really weird one, and I can't quite. The only thing I can think of is something has happened behind the scenes. So I can't quite put my finger on why we haven't seen Jamie Shackleton play more than he has, either in the centre midfield role, just as a little bit more rotation for the options we have in there, or at right back, where Danny, in particular, the last few months hasn't quite reached the standards that he has done before. And I think his agents came out and said it's very unlikely he's going to move to us on a permanent deal, which is a shame, because there's clearly a player in there who's featured quite prominently for Leeds when they got promoted a few years ago. So
I agree with that.
just haven't seen him enough to give him any more than a 6. And when he has played, I think he's played generally on the whole quite well.
No, I agree with you there. Ben?
Yeah, 5.5, mate. Exactly what Dan just said, really. We just haven't seen enough of him. There's clearly something going on behind the scenes because, again, as Dan just mentioned, with the Danny Mack piece, he hasn't been the best of form and he still hasn't been able to force his way in. It's a really weird one with Shackleton because he had a couple of good games against Burnley and Sheffield United when he come in. And I thought, this is it now. He's going to get in the side a bit. And again, just seemed to have vanished. So 5.5. And yeah, as Dan said, I don't think we'll be seeing him again next year.
Stephen?
Yeah, much the same. 5 for me. You can't really rate a player who you haven't seen. The one thing that the guys haven't touched on there though is that I think when Shackleton signed for us, there was the inclusion of the option to buy, or first refusal on the option to buy, and that's why it took longer. Because I remember lots of people, it was mentioned that he was coming, and you had lots of, how long is it going to be? When's he signing? And it was because they were including that in the deal. So if you've got that in mind, and you've got a player that clearly you wanted to sign on a permanent basis, but you wasn't able to do it in that transfer window, you'd give him the opportunity to play. So something's gone on behind the scenes. His agent, as the guy said, have come out and basically quashed any chance of him coming back to the club. It's a shame, and I think he'll probably flourish somewhere else at this level. But there's not really much more you can say. If you don't see someone play, you can't really rate him, can you?
No. Right. Ollie Burke. Stephen.
Ollie Burke. Again, I was one that, as much as we all knew he was a panic signing, it was clearly obvious that it was. I think we've established before, they looked in the old black book and looked at old players that have played for us and gone, right, he might want to come back because he's not playing in Germany, so let's give him a call. And also he had his missus who lives in this country, so probably wanted to spend some more time with her. But we just haven't seen the best out of him, have we? I mean, okay, maybe in the last month or so he's been one of our more attacking threats. I think the whole game he was very, very good. I actually thought he was quite good in the first half against Blackburn, and other performances where he's been okay, but he just doesn't come across that he's a footballer that's got anything up here. He's got speed, but he just doesn't look like he really knows what he's doing with it. His touch is a bit off, and I don't really know what it is. He's never settled at a football club, and I think that's really telling, because he either doesn't really know, he doesn't really want it as a footballer. He's happy to just sit back and take the money, or perhaps he's just never found anywhere to call home. And I really thought that with us, it might have been an opportunity to rebuild his career, but I don't think he'd have found many suitors to want to sign him based on his performances. So again, I can't go any higher than a 5.
Ben?
Yeah, I've gone 6. And an interesting stat, I was quickly tallying it up there while Stephen was talking, over his 2 spells now for an attacker/winger forward player. He's got 4 goals and 3 assists in 2 spells of us. So,
how many games is that?
Sums it all up, really, doesn't it?
Do you know?
I don't know, mate. I was just quickly flicking through, but that's just not enough, right, from an attacking player. He actually, for me, did really well I dug Fleming out for not doing enough in the last 10 games, probably from the whole game to the last game of the season. I actually thought he did really well, and he was probably one of our most dangerous attacking outlets. But yeah, as I just said, 4 goals and 3 assists over 2 spells, just not good enough for a player that's probably on, probably the highest earner at the club, I'd imagine.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know about that, but yeah, maybe. Dan?
Also gone with a 6. Just kind of flattered to deceive, really. I remember when we first signed him on loan from Sheffield United last year. He'd had spells at Sheffield United and West Brom, and both of their fans said he's a speedboat with no driver. He's so quick, but he just doesn't know what to do with it. And after seeing him, he's had 2 6-month spells. You can give or take probably the appearances he's made, call it a season. To have 7 goal contributions near enough in a whole season for where we're aiming to get to just isn't quite good enough. And there's a reason as well why he's accumulated like almost 20-25 million worth of transfer fees throughout his career, I think. And he's failed to settle in and find a home. Yeah, I ironically I probably would have taken him last summer because I thought he would have given us something different. But if the option's there this summer, I wouldn't.
He must have a really good agent.
Yeah.
Mickey, you're on mute.
He's got a very poor dress sense. So yeah, saw him at the end of season dinner, mate, wearing his platform. So yeah, nice car though. He's got incredibly good taste in cars. He's got a lovely defender, mate, souped up defender. So well done for that one, mate. But yeah, remember anyway, if you are watching, Ollie, you're a lot bigger than all of us, and Stephen was the one who counted you there, not us. Okay. Have I missed anyone?
Honeyman.
George
Honeyman, that's it, yeah. I couldn't think if he was January, if he was before, but yeah, George Honeyman. We're throw it around a bit. We'll go with you first, Ben.
And again, with my rating here, people are going to go, "You absolutely mental." Given the fact I give Fleming a 7.5. I've given Honeyman a 7 because I think you know what you're going to get with him week in, week out. Again, I think we actually really missed him in the run-in. I think when you just need a bit of energy, he's the man you always look to. He's played out of position, I'd probably argue again. He'd probably be playing in that 10 role that Fleming's obviously been playing in. I like Honeyman. I think we always go back to that statement of we need Millwall-type players. I think he's a definition of that. You're always going to get a 7 out of a 10 every week, and that's why I've given him a 7, just based on him, not comparing what Fleming's done to what he's done, but I'm giving him a 7.
Okay, no worries. Stephen?
I really like George Honeyman, and I completely agree with Ben that we missed him in the running, because I think there's certain times where you need, as you say, a little bit of energy, that sort of little bit of movement to open a defence, and I think Honeyman's capable of that. However, if we're talking about goal contributions, off the top of my head, I don't think he's got more than a couple of goals and a couple of assists in the season. I might be really doing him an injustice, but I don't think he's got many. The one assist was for Voggy in the game against Swansea, and I think he scored a rebound goal early on in the season, maybe against Coventry. But as much as I like him, and as much as I think he brings a fair bit to the squad, he's an attacker that isn't producing numbers. So I'm going to have to, as it might seem unfair because, as I said, I do quite like him. And I think he was brought in under the pretense of playing in a different system. He was brought in the summer when we were going to be playing with the 3-5-2 and perhaps having a different role to play. But I'm going to go over 6.
Okay. Dan?
Sorry, mate, just jump in. It's 1 goal, 3 assists. Just for your benefit. So if we're judging Ollie Burke on a season with 7 goal contributions, Honeyman's been here for 1 season and he's got 4. So I like him, but he needs to do a little bit more perhaps to get those numbers up.
Dan?
I'm going to go slap bang in the middle of the lads. I'm going to go for a 6.5. I really like him, and I think at the start of the season he was probably one of the very few victims from when we changed formation, because he kind of lost his spot in the team. Fleming had taken his spot as the 10 at that point, so he was almost a bit lost. Mitchell and Saville kind of made the double pivot their own. And I think one thing that I've noticed recently is that maybe, Danny Mack, he hasn't quite hit the heights he did this season, he did last season. When he was better in the first half of this season, he either had Voggy or Honeyman in front of him, and them two were absolute grafters. They work back, they help the team. Maybe not, you can't quite say the same thing for Ollie Burke, unfortunately. So that might be, I think we've discussed it before, that may be why Danny's second half of the season drop-offs came, possibly from having Burke in front of him. But I would have loved to have someone like Honeyman around for the running. I think he's a brilliant player, and if he can get more numbers to go of his game, I think we've got a really, really good player there.
Excellent. Right, that's the ratings done then. As I said, I'm going to play around with this list a bit. Let's go into the retained list or make guesses on the retained list. We know 4 players who are nailed on to be going. That's going to be Bennett, Malone, Leonard, and Evans, possibly. Who else do you think will be on the thank you very much, off you go list? Whoever wants to come in first.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think we are going to say goodbye to all 4 of those. I think 2 definitely are going.
Malone's definitely going.
Yeah, Evans and Malone. Evans and Malone are the 2 that are definitely going. I think they may. I wouldn't put it past them to offer both Leonard and Bennett a deal. Would I do that? No. I think I would keep Ryan Leonard, but I think Mason Bennett, as much as Mason Bennett, I think when you keep him fit, is a very good Championship footballer. The fact that you have to put when you keep him fit in front of everything we talk about him, you can't carry an attacker that you're gonna see him 1 week and you're gonna miss him for 3. So I think Leonard might stay. I think Rowett's a big fan of him, and I think he would try and keep him at the club. But Malone, Bennett, and George Evans are definitely going. I don't think any of our other first teamers are out of contract, and I might spark a little bit of a controversial debate here, but Jake Cooper is coming into the last year of his contract, and I do not want us to lose Jake Cooper by any stretch of the imagination. He's played 300 games for us, and I think he could go on to play a hell of a lot more. However, if we're faced with the same situation that we were with Jed Wallace last year, where he wasn't going to sign a contract, or he wasn't sure if he wanted to sign a contract to see what other options are out there, we cannot afford to let Jake Cooper go on a free. And if he's not going to sign a new deal, I think we should be looking to get some money in for him. So he's one I think that we may see leave the club. I don't know what you guys' thoughts on that are.
Yeah, I mean, I think echo what you've just said there, mate. I would say, would I want to see him leave? No, but again, we've spoken about this a million times. Our transfer policy or policy of letting go good players without getting a fee in is pretty appalling, certainly in recent years. So, yeah, if it was a case of he was even debating it, if we got a couple of £1 million now, I would probably take it, because we're probably going to need to reinvest that purely based on the numbers that we're going to need to get in. And just to go on the Bennett and Malone, the Bennett and Leonard piece, was just doing again some quick figures there. So between them, they've played 1,500 minutes of football this year, which equates to 16 games of the season. That's just not enough. I would almost. Leonard's a difficult one, because I think, again, if he can stay fit, I think he's going to be a huge player for us. But recent years, he just hasn't played enough games. So again, unless you're going to get him on a cut deal or a pay-as-you-play, then can we afford to be having players like that in the squad that are ultimately going to be missing 2/3 of the season? I'm not sure we can. Again, with the bodies that we're going to lose and what we're going to need to get in, I think it's going to be more important that we keep them. But are they going to improve us for next year? No. So personally, I would let all 4 go and say thanks for your time and let's try and move on. Will that happen? I would say almost 100% no, and we'll probably end up keeping 2 of them, like Stephen said.
Just before I come to you, Dan, obviously I posted that the show was going out. We were recording the show tonight, and Adam Blasket has replied, and he said, out Evans, Malone, Bennett, Leonard. We can't be sentimental if we're serious about top 6 again. Also, and then I think we're stuck with the rest of the deadwood, as realistically, who would buy, i.e. George Long. And an interesting one, but again, through Adam Blasket, he thinks Bart might rejoin Ipswich.
That was one. I think we need to. We'll get fully onto like what we think we need. I do think we need a new goalkeeper, which for me means we don't need Long and Bart. In an ideal world, now there's 2 ways of looking at this. You can keep George Long as your number 2, because as Adam just touched on there, it's unlikely we're going to get a fee. So you keep Jules Long as your number 2. You know, he's a bit younger and he signed a new deal in January. So there's every chance, you know, that he might stay for a few years, you know, play the cup games, and, you know, he might be quite happy with that. Or you can try and get a fee for him and keep Bart, who is the better goalkeeper out of the 2, but he's older. So
But
I
he's in
don't
his
think
prime, though, I suppose, isn't he?
Who, Bart?
Unless there's an injury there that we don't know about.
Well, it's interesting. I thought I've heard a knee injury mentioned a couple of times, and there was the summer he signed. He was due to sign for us right at the start of the summer, and then he failed a medical. Something to do with his knee came up from memory, and then eventually the deal went through later on in the summer. Whether they agreed to reduce the terms or whatnot. But if Barter goes back to Ipswich, he's only going to be their number 2 there as well. Their goalkeeper is phenomenal, Ipswich's goalkeeper. So it's, you know, unless they're going to offer him more money, you know, that's the thing.
No, that's it. But I mean, do you agree with the 4 what been mentioned that realistically get rid of them?
I'd keep Leonard. I think he's a very, very good player. But you can't rely on him to start week in, week out. I think he's a good squad player to have, and you need depth in a long season. I would release Evans and Malone without even thinking about it. Can't have that. You know, I think Leonard can bring something to this squad. I don't think Malone or Evans bring anything really to the squad that we don't have in other players. Bennett's an interesting one because he is very, very good. The only way I would want to keep Bennett is if we kept him on a pay-as-you-play deal. And I can't see Bennett agreeing to sign on that because I think there will be another Championship club, maybe a promoted team, maybe someone like Plymouth Argyle who might want to take a punt on him. So that's the only way I could justify keeping Mason Bennett.
Right, I've got you. Yeah. I suppose that makes sense, and I sort of agree with you there. It'll be interesting to see if any of the youth players end up being gone. So we'll see. We'll see with that one. So yeah, Ben, you got a point?
Oh, it was just a quick one, and I don't know if I'm reading into this, but Rich Cowley obviously tweeted earlier and said that Leonard, Malone, Mason, Bennett were obviously all due to be free agents at the end of June. Is he implying there that is he just saying they're out of contract, or is he saying they're going to be free agents, as in we're going to release them? Am I reading into that?
No, you're reading in that their contracts end in June. Fine. I would suggest.
I didn't know if he was implying that meant the club would be let.
No, I would probably say that the fact that Richard Cowley's published that and the fact that there'll be free agents is either that there's contract negotiation potentially going on with one or all 4 of them, or there's no contract negotiations. The way you've got to understand is Richard Cowley saying something, there's a reason why he's saying it. Because out of all the journalists, he is the one with the closest links to the club. And he is the one who if the club wants something out, he will be the one who potentially puts it out there, rather than any of the other journos.
So interesting that he's left Evans off that list, right? So if you're
Evans
going on your
was
point,
on there, sorry to come in. He was on there, but he was in a separate paragraph further down on his own.
Fine.
Which makes me think decisions are already. It makes me think on Evans, the decision's already been made.
Yeah, that's exactly that's what I was going to say, mate. And maybe then the 3, as you said, Mickey, that they are then entering in the contract negotiations, and that's why he said it. But knowing that Evans is leaving, interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we do with those 3.
I think as well on the retain list, we were talking about this in the week. There will be some of the youth team that are let go. It happens every year that they get added on at the end of they do the first team and then the youngsters, and then they give a separate list, don't they, on who's been given professional deals and who's going to be, have contract extensions. So perhaps because the development squad won today and their season continues, perhaps that's going to maybe delay the potential announcement of who's going to be retained, because they're not going to want to tell some youngsters who might have to be involved in a playoff final on Saturday that they won't be at the club. So it may delay it a little bit further, because they're not going to keep every single one of them. That's just not going to happen. So they'll do it all together, I think.
Well, see, there's loads on social media about Callum Styles as well at the moment, isn't there? Is it Callum Styles? Yeah, Callum Styles. Again, it's that time of the season, mate. Everything will be done. I'm going to die in peace. But yeah,
I think. Sorry,
I'm fucking glad you don't get paid per word, Stephen.
With Callum Styles. So hold on a minute. When do we get paid?
Yeah. Speak to your agent.
With Callum Styles, I just think if we're going to sign him and we're going to spend that much money, we have to put him in one position and play him there. We can't have him as this utility that he was brought in under. You buy him for big money, because it is going to be big money for us for who he is. He's not a forward that's going to get you 20 goals a season. Pick a position, stick him there, and that's his position for the season.
Here's one for you. Here's a question for you. And you probably won't be able to because you're all fairly youngish. And I don't think I can. Possibly I can think of a player fairly recent, maybe. But no. Can you name me the last 10-plus goal striker who came up through the academy and played first team for Millwall and was successful? We've had plenty of right wingers, right backs, left backs, defensive. But who was the last? I think it'll probably go to comments and on YouTube or Twitter or whatever. But again, I'll put the question out on Twitter after the show. But can you name a player who's come up through the academy, through the youth system, and done? Player I'm thinking of potentially the last one. Was it Aidan O'Brien? Maybe. And was he successful? It was, he could score goals, but other than that, Danny Hopton, I don't know. No, I can't think of a striker who come up through the ranks who was a prolific goal scorer.
Yeah, Aidan was he was a very, very good League One player for us. Always struggled to make the step up, Been at Gillingham this season due to injuries and stuff. So, but he was a very, very good League One player.
No, totally. But the other question is, how does the likes of Bromley manage to attract the strikers, or our guys what leave us go there and do well? But we don't seem to, play our strikers into the first team, do we? I mean, you've got Nana Botan, who's been scoring goals for fun all season, and the other lad in the youth team, I can't think of his name either. But you've got Esse, who's sort of coming, but he's not a striker. But Nana hasn't got a
Abdelmalik.
He hasn't got a place either, is he? No. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Why is it? Are we light on striker trainers or striker influence? Because we've been moaning about this within the first team setup, but is it something else that we're fairly weak on the academy side as well, with people who can train strikers? Because we seem to be able to produce fairly good goalkeepers and defensive players, just not strikers.
I think it's harsh to say that they go to Bromley and score goals, because you've got to look at the level that Bromley are playing at. No disrespect to them and the job that Alan Dunn and that are doing there, great. But they're leaving a championship setup to go and play in the National League. So I don't think it's a fair comparison. I mean, you look, all you got to do is look at John Marquis. John Marquis has made his name in League One football and scored a lot of goals in League One football, but no one's ever taken a punt on him in the Championship, have they? No one's ever gone, he scored 20 goals here, he's got 18 goals there. No one's ever taken a punt on him. So they're clearly not good enough for the level that we're at.
Did he play a Championship for Wickham?
I don't think so.
Sure.
I'll check now.
Yeah, I don't think he did.
I thought he was in the Championship. Maybe it was League One, but yeah.
He was really successful at Doncaster. I think he's now at Bristol Rovers and got a few goals, but no one's ever taken a punt on him, and he scored goals in League One. So there's obviously a reason why. Fred Onyedinma, another one who was, supposed to be the next big thing.
Yeah, but his agent fucked him, not his new one. His old agent fucked him.
Yeah, but he's now playing as a wing back. I know he's playing for Luton, who are in the Championship, but he's not a forward anymore. He's their reserve wing back. So I think it's a bit harsh to say perhaps that we don't have the setup to develop young forwards. It's just they're not good enough to play.
I don't think it's harsh. I think it's quite truthful to a degree. Who have we got in the academy who's training strikers? Because who have we got in the first team set up to train strikers? Because we haven't. We've moaned about it on the show plenty of times. You know, these pauses don't help when you're listening in a car. Okay?
Yeah, I don't know enough about the coaching stuff. Obviously, we got Kevin Nugent and Robbo, mate, but I don't know who else would be involved. So, yeah, not sure.
Just a question. A pal asked me earlier, and we were having a thing over it earlier, and we couldn't think, and it was just one of those where you go, who was it? But I'll put it out to Twitter. You know, so if you listen to this, it will be on our Twitter feed shortly. And obviously it will be on YouTube. So do make a comment if you know, do make a comment, or if you've got a view on why we can't seem to produce any quality strikers. Again, let us know there. Right then, gents, let's go into, we've got about 15 minutes left. I'm going to leave analyse a players to another episode, and I'm going to go into positions we need to strengthen. What areas do we need to strengthen? Again, the fellow I mentioned a little while ago, he's come up with a couple of positions. Adam Blaskett, the new goalkeeper, new right back, young centre back, new left back. Sign Callum Styles, sign a new winger, and sign a new striker. Don't need to be permanent or transfer. Let's look at the under-21s and what can we bring through there as well. It can't just be SA. Who would like to go first? Dan?
Yeah, go on then. I'll take this on. I would like to see us sign a goalkeeper, a right back, a centre back, a left back. I'd like 2 wingers and another striker as well. Yeah, 2 wingers could possibly be dependent on if they deem one of the youth players to be able to step up. And you know, I'm kind of waiting to see, you know, other clubs kind of retained and release lists, and where the Premier League, which Premier League teams are going to come down as well, before I can start to, you know, almost put down names I'd like to try and see us go for this summer. So yeah, but I think there's a good 6 to 7 players needed this summer.
Okay, Stephen.
I think the fact that we're asking to be signing about 7 or 8 players initially, and that's not taken into consideration who we're going to lose, is a little bit of a concern. And another reason why jumping on the back, I'd keep Leonard, because I think Leonard's a good squad player. I don't want too many utility players, but I think Leonard is someone that is very, very good, that can fit in as and where you need. I think the real areas of priority are, we definitely need a left back. We really desperately need a left back. I think we need a new goalkeeper. Whether or not we're going to get one, I think we might be disappointed there, and I think it might be Barton Long for the season. Which, again, that might be.
Do you think any of our youth setup is ready yet or not?
In the
like
sense
Ryan
of the
Stanford, or...
well, Ryan Stanford's been at the club for what seems about 8 or 9 years. He was there when he was like 13, 14 years old. So
I think he's like 23 now.
There must be something there, because he would leave. He would go and find first team football somewhere else. So
he's had a couple of loan spells in non-league. I know he was playing for Maidstone United earlier this season. They didn't mind him down there, and then he got injured, and they never saw him again. But that was kind of around Christmas time. I don't think he'll be kept on by the club. I didn't include him because I don't think I've ever seen him put a Millwall shirt on for the first team. You know, so that might be one that maybe Bromley end up with, possibly, or back to Maidstone. Stay kind of local, but sadly drop down the pyramid.
And also, didn't we signed a goalkeeper from Birmingham?
Yeah,
Truman.
Yeah, who again, if he was brought in, then Sanford clearly wasn't considered for first team football or to be on the bench or whatever. So I don't know about the youth goalkeepers. I'm not sure. And the obvious, as we always say, we desperately need. I think we need 2 wingers, regardless of whether the youth are ready or not. We desperately need 2 out and out wingers in the squad, and the ever elusive centre forward to help lighten the load on Tom Bradshaw. We say it every transfer window. Striker. It used to be the joke, didn't it? Any news on a striker, John, or any news on a striker to Alex Aldridge, that used to be the tweet every single day by hundreds of supporters. So it's going to be the same this year.
There's a couple of good ones. I mean, I would definitely look at the Notts County keeper, and I'd probably also look at the Notts County striker as well. Whether or not they've got the nous about them to step up is neither here nor there. There was another player I was talking about this afternoon. I can't fucking think for the life of me who he was now. Another striker, but over 3 seasons he's scored. He's in lower league, but over 3 seasons he's scored nearly 80 goals.
That Macaulay Lang stuff.
Yeah.
He's the one who's
that's the Notts County striker.
He's been linked with everyone for. I think we were linked with him in January. But I think there's a lot of clubs that have been looking at him for a while. I think
the striker that I think we should be looking at, and it's dependent whether or not they go down from the Premier League, is Ellis Sims from Everton. I thought he was very, very good for Sunderland first half of the season. I thought he played very well against us just after the World Cup, and Everton called him back because they had problems, but he's not getting in their team. I don't think he's getting in their team. And the Everton fans started on him, didn't they? There was a video on social media that they lost a game and they chased him to his car and he quickly got in it and drove off. So that could be one. He did it at Sunderland. There's no reason why, again, perhaps on a loan if Everton stay up. But I really like the look of him, and I think he's one we should look at.
Ben?
So I've got 8 written down here that we need. And then I looked at who we're going to lose or possibly lose, and that also equates to 8. So if we look at Creswell, Stiles, Shackleton and Burke are all going back to their clubs. Bennett, Evans, Lenny and Malone also could go. I'm now looking at those 4 players and almost certainly saying 2 of those are going to have to re-sign. So it's probably going to be Bennett and Leonard. But I had 8 here. I put goalkeeper down purely based on what we've already spoken about. And is Bart's knee dodgy? We don't think Long's the long-term answer. But I think with Stephen, I think we're going to be disappointed there. I don't think we're going to get anyone in between the sticks. I've got right back, centre back, left back, which is a bit of a concern looking at that. And I've got centre midfielder here, but I'll probably cross that off and we'll just keep Leonard. 2 wingers I've got down. I'm assuming SA is going to step into one of those positions a bit more. And then, as we've said, I think centre forward striker is an absolute must. We need someone to help Radders out. So yeah, there's a lot of players that we could potentially need, and another high turnover in the squad in the summer potentially.
Yeah, I mean, last season we got rid of 13 players for nothing. You know, Afobe being one of them, Jed being another. So we're not talking, you know, young players, old players. There was a good mix of players there who potentially we could have got something for them. But again, you know, another question. When was the last time we sold a player for money? And I don't really include the 2 lads at Man City. Okay, we got money for them and they paid for some of the transfers this season. But the last real player we had, what sold for money? Because I think Saville,
Morrison?
We sold him.
No, Saville,
yeah, but we got all that money back. We didn't actually. That money was instalments, and I don't think we got that money back. Because when he come back, I think that just wrote off a lot of the money that was owed.
Yeah, there was probably. I mean, we'd probably end up paying they'd probably end up paying 5 to 6 million at that point out of the 7, I reckon. So.
Yeah, maybe Morrison then, and that's a while back now, isn't it? I'm trying to think of any.
That wouldn't have been much either. That probably would have been, considering he was 35, that would have been about 100 grand tops.
No, I'm thinking pre that, mate. I'm thinking.
Oh, pre that. Oh, well, when he went back
to Norwich.
Yeah.
What was that? 2-3 mil tops.
I think that was about 2.5.
Maybe. I saw something the other day that Teddy Sheringham left us for 2 million, and it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Teddy Sheringham left us for 2 million, and Cahill left us for what, 1.2, 1.3. We don't seem to have ever been a team to sell players for big money, unless we just ruin them.
That's where we've already spoke about so many times, and again, it's probably another show topic, that the behind the scenes, the recruitment strategy is awful at Millwall. They just don't. This is why I said earlier, and I don't want to lose Jake Cooper, but if you can't let another. If you asked fans in the Championship and managers if they could sign a centre half, I reckon Jake Cooper would be on the top of a lot of their lists. But he doesn't get injured very often. He's played 300 games. He's a threat from set pieces. He's going to go. You can see it a mile off.
He's got to be in today's weird and wonderful transfer fees and everything else. He's got to be 3 to 5 million all day long.
But that's if he wasn't in the last year of his contract. That's where you've got a problem. So they've. I look. You know, we as I say, we can do a show on recruitment if we really need to. But if he's not going to sign, we'll get. If someone offers a couple of million, I know Rangers keep being linked with him. We might have to look at taking the money, because you can't let him go for free next summer.
No, totally agree with you.
Just having a look here, just on what you said, Mickey, and this is on transferleague.co.uk. I have no idea if this is a credible source, but they've gone up to 19-20 season, and I had to scroll back to Steve Morrison in 2012 for 2.8 million as the last player we sold north of 250 grand, which was James Henry before that in 2013-14 season. So, our recruitment out the door for money has been non-existent in recent years. I would say arguably, again, here since 2016, it's all been 0, 0, 0. So there's been no money coming in the club from any player sales.
I think there's probably a show in that, and also a show on the commercial. You know, looking at brands. I mean, even Notts. Okay, it's slightly different, but even Notts County is sponsored by Cadbury's.
And Puma.
They give up the front of the shirt for a local. You see. I'll come to that in a sec. They give up the shirt to a local business, so they don't actually take the benefit. They've got their name on the back of the shirt rather than I think it's for a foundation or whatever what does it. But shirts are different, you see. Shirts are, I know when I was within the club as such, when I was found on the board, what, you know, not a lot of people know about, but I know that they looked at about 6 or 7 companies. They were talking to Puma, Nike, Adidas, all the big names, so Umbro, etc., all the big names and the usual suspects as well. But the trouble is with a lot of those, because of the shirt volumes, what we sell, we don't get much more than basic shelf items. So it'd be, you can have that shirt in a blue, a yellow, or a red, and you can have a line on it, but that's pretty much it for the top boys. You know, they're very, very standard shirts, what you can't really make your own, compared to like Era or Hummel or someone else, where they'd let you actually, you know, design the shirt a bit more to what you want, because obviously they are a smaller one with lower needs. Because I mean, you know, look at, I watched something the other day with Wrexham. I was listening to a fella, the chairman from Wrexham, or the CEO, and they've ordered 35,000 shirts for next season, and they sold 25,000 shirts this last season. I'd be interested to know, and it's probably information we would never find out, you know, if we could get to, you know, if we could ever get to interview one of the, you know, commercial, or even Steve Kavanagh or someone, and just find out what we do. But I can't see us getting rid of anywhere near 20,000 shirts a season. I reckon I reckon 5, maybe 5 to 8,000 shirts at a push, absolute push throughout the whole season. They're talking about getting rid of those 25,000 shirts till Christmas, and then had to reorder after Christmas.
On that though, in the National League playoffs, talking about the sponsors, Boreham Wood, I think were sponsored by Puma as well. You can't tell me that they're shifting the same numbers as Notts County, and Puma are more reputable. No disrespect.
Yeah, no. The way shirt
sponsors, but
the shirt sponsors work two ways. You can either if I'm going on memory, it could have changed completely a lot. And basically, the way I was told with shirts is that they work in two ways. So the smaller brands will give you a bigger upfront payment. So they give you a lump of cash and a higher and a lower margin. So you'll be buying the stock at a higher price. Or you can get no money up front and then a lot higher margin on shirts. So for instance, I don't know, say you're buying a shirt for 10 quid and you're making all the money back from the shirt sales that's selling them for 55 or whatever, or you'll buy a shirt at like 25, 30 quid. I'm using, estimate figures. I don't know what they are because I haven't worked out what the margin is on that or anything else, but maybe £20 a shirt with a bit of cash up front, and then they're taking a gamble on you. But Puma and all that lot, we could go get Puma, we could go get Nike, Adidas, but I don't think the money's necessarily there for us to be able to make anything major, and also not getting the shirt what you want to get with the designs what you want on it. When you've got someone like Era or Hugh or Hummel, well, it wasn't Hummel, it was another company, but you want a shirt. If you owned a football club, you want to go, right, I want a shirt with this on and that on and that on, and I want a button down collar, or I want, a round collar. I don't want a thing, and they're offering, Nike's offering you basically a box standard. You can have it with a V collar, or you can have it with a lines on the sleeve. It can be tailored sleeves or standard sleeve. That's the only option you've got. And that's pretty much what it is. I mean, if there's anyone who's listening who works for a shirt manufacturer, and you can come on shows and talk about it, then please come in and talk, because it'll be interesting to have. Maybe we'll look at trying to reach out to some of these shirts just to find out. They must tell you. But that's that's what I was led to believe before. And yeah, I mean, would we increase shirt sales if we suddenly, would we increase shirt sales if we suddenly went Nike? Maybe more people Walworth Roadside would buy more shirts because it's Nike. And if we went Adidas, would we sell more in Bermondsey? Because obviously there's always been a tradition of one side of the Old Kent Road's Reeboks and Adidas, and one side of the Old Kent Road's Nike. So, I don't know. But yeah, hey ho. Anyway, just before we end, in this show description, when this goes up on YouTube, you can click in there. I was asked to collaborate on a video with a American YouTuber who made a short video, about 8 minutes, on rivalry between Millwall and West Ham. It's nothing major. It's quite interesting. It just goes back on the history, why we hate it, why they hate us, or why we hate them. It's quite interesting. I mean, I knew a lot of it, but yeah, looking at it and actually seeing that, most people's thoughts are that it was over the Dockers strike. Yeah, that myth it's not the same as the myth where people go, we were started by a jam factory. I suggest you read some books, because it weren't a jam factory, it was a tinsmith. So yeah, but again, it's slightly wrong. Even the plaque at the Isle of Dogs says it was a jam factory when JT Morgan wasn't a jam factory. Yeah, thanks for that, Ben. You just put me right off. Because I've got you on full screen and your comments are coming straight up. So every time you type, it comes straight up in a box. Next to whoever writes it, it comes straight up in a box. So yeah, if you want to watch that, click on the YouTube channel. I will pin the link to the video. It's called Football Culture. Is the channel, and it's the Century of Hate, the rivalry between West Ham and Millwall. And believe it or not, during 1899 and 1912, we played West Ham over 60 times in that short amount of time. And then from 1912 to 2023, we've only played them 39 times. So in all, we've only played West Ham 99 times, and we've beaten them, I think we've beaten them 39 times, and they've beaten us 36 or whatever it is. So and drawn the rest. So we are the best. And that rivalry, we pulled off the biggest bit of banter, nothing to do with me, down to the pods from Hoff and Millwall Air Force, who Avram Grant, Millwall legend, over Wigan that time. So quite funny. Yes, there's a few little mistakes in there, I think. And if you're West Ham who listens to this, because some of you do on YouTube, yes, you can call it bias, but I was invited, West Ham was invited, and they didn't want to get involved. So fuck them. It is what it is. What else is there to say? I don't think there is. We will get some more shows out. We are going to be doing shows through this off season. Obviously, we won't be doing match reviews, but we will be doing shows. We've got some other ideas of shows to get done, so we will be doing shows for you. Stephen, you got anything you want to say?
Not really.
Let me guess.
No. If anyone wants to come and watch me make an idiot of myself in the charity game at the Den next Tuesday, 23rd, by all means, come along. Ben is gracing the pitch, I think, later on this week. So I'm sure we'll all hear how he gets on there. But no, obviously this is my first season joining the podcast, so it's been cool doing it. And hopefully over the summer we can keep you all entertained with whatever news we can bring you.
Yeah, we should do our own retain list, shouldn't we? Do they go or do they stay? That could be quite funny and quite off-putting, but yeah. Ben, you got anything to say, fella?
No, mate. Well, pretty much what Stephen said. Thanks for getting us on this year, mate. It's been I would say a good season, but maybe one that's left a little bit of a disappointing taste in all our mouths in terms of the team. But yeah, thanks for getting us on, mate. It'd be interesting to see what we do over the summer in terms of transfers. Hopefully we can get a few bodies in, because we definitely need it for a playoff push again next year.
Absolutely. Oh, fucking hell. You had to put the words in now, didn't you?
Sorry.
Yeah. Dan, you got anything you want to say, fella?
Just nervously excited now for the future. Big summer. But I'm looking forward to hopefully helping the pod produce more top quality content. And thank you for adding me into your group, lads. So roll on the summer.
No, that's it, mate. That's it. Interesting times ahead from us. All our channels are growing and growing massively. So a massive shout out to all of you what have found us. Maybe this is the first video you've watched. We have plenty more. Just check out. If you're listening to it on podcast, just have a look through there. There's over 300 shows we've done. We've been around a little while, but this last season we've really started pushing forward with numbers. YouTube is growing massively. Nearly 500,000 of you seen us this year on YouTube. Loads of you, millions of you have seen us across Twitter and interacted with us over the last year. And our numbers on the podcast are hugely growing. So from the bottom of my heart, from me and Omar, thank you very much. We started this because we were missing not being in a pub, not going to games. So, we started this on that. We've now moved it forward. We've got obviously the lads. We went from me and Omar. And obviously we had Neil, who defected to act on Millwall at the start with the Friday Night Live. And then it was me and Omar. And then we got Chris, we got Joe, we've got Ben, we've got Stephen, and now we've got Dan, we've got Alex. And yeah, we've got the website. Instagram's nearly at 1,000. So if you're not already following us, please do. And also, if you are watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to the button just below Dan, which says subscribe. Subscribe there. It means nothing to you, but it means the world to us and helps us get in front of more and more people. Well, that's it. This is That Millwall Podcast. Thank you very much for listening to us. And please, if you know or you can think you can name the last striker who we brought through the academy and turned into being a prolific scorer of 10 plus goals, not including Aidan O'Brien, then please drop his name in the comments or drop it on any of our socials or wherever.